communicating that I think is lacking big time here in Canby, as well as there's future things that are going to happen that I can see right now, like with budgeting. I think zero-based budgeting is the best way to go. If you research that, line budgeting is the easiest and the most worst way of doing a budget, in my opinion. Second, because Oregon has that Measure 50 and Measure 5 law, I think you can only get 3% per year of your property taxes. But yet, the expenses on public, like police and fire department, pensions and health care, all that's going to go up way past that. So you're doing this right now. So how are you going to figure that out? And I think the only way you can do that is to monetize the city and creating partnerships that are businesses. So you can start getting money in. So when that time does happen, you're not like all the other cities and just firing people. Because at the end of the day, the city council, I think your main thing besides the legislative is you're providing service to the community. And if you can see the future, I mean, look at the history, you can see the future that you're not going to be able to do it. So you have to start doing things now to bring money in. And I think the ERA is one tool that allows you to do that. Does that make sense?
Does indeed. Tell us about a situation in which you may have had to deal with a very upset constituent or customer or coworker, and how did you solve the conflict? What was the issue and how did you solve it?
Involving so many. I've been an advocate too, so like so many. But I think one good example, as part of that Children Athletic Association, at any given time we'd have 400 to 800 kids participating in either basketball or 2 winter and summer seasons of baseball. And one time we had this, it was like a tournament. It was a tournament. And our whole side was yelling profanities at the umpires, the first base umpires. I mean, and I don't know if you've ever been in Los Angeles, but it gets physical, very physical. And so what we had, and the people that came were from San Diego, so they were all white and very nice, very, just really nice people. I think they were just doing all this. But so the decision was we had to forfeit the game, close the game, and then all of those people wanted to beat me up. We took them into the office, and I had to explain to them, you know, they were right that the umpire was doing terrible calls, but they just were so focused on that they forgot about the reason we were there was for the kids. It was a recreational league. It wasn't nothing that like do or die situation, and that their behavior was, first of all, it affected us forfeiting, and second, that if that behavior continued, their kids couldn't participate in the league. And I think, and then I said, if you guys don't like the umpires, there's a way of getting rid of them. Like almost like an initiative process where they just go to the board and like bring it to the agenda and like maybe get rid of the person. So once I showed them how they can address their concerns and also what their behavior was causing, everybody was cool about it. But it was, at the time, I thought I was going to get beat up. But so that was a very difficult decision.
Do you have some specific goal or improvement you'd like to make in Canby as a result of serving as a city councilor? Communication.
I think that I think it's like 22% of the community are Hispanics, and if you add in the non-white residents, it's like a third, and there's no representation. That's kind of bad to say, but there's no Hispanics or people who are non-white on the board, so that's what I mean by no representation. And I think that, you know, one thing about Canby that I love is that this is like a family right here. And it's like anybody that wants to come to Canby, that's the first thing they're going to see. Some people call it Mayberry, or whatever you want to call it, but it's like a family environment here. And a truly family environment involves communication. And how can you communicate? How can you represent a third or a quarter of the residents when you can't communicate with them? So I think integrating them and being a bridge for people who don't speak that language or are not from that culture, help them understand that culture. Almost like what you guys did with the Confederate flag. That was a big, difficult issue, but you guys did what you did to try to, you know, bring out the issues to light and what you thought about it. But I just think with that quarter of the population, when you do that bridge, it's going to be beautiful for both sides. And true representation.
So communication-wise, I like that idea for sure of reaching out. How specifically would you do that? How would you engage or bring them to the process, the Hispanic population, so that we are bridged?
No, I was blessed to have different city council members in my life, and one of them, Henry Gonzalez, he used the term kick rocks. You have to kick rocks. In other words, you have to go out there. What he would do, he would make himself available once a week where everybody in the city knew, usually on the weekend. So anybody in the city can go there and they knew he was always there, they can bring his issues to him. He also made, the other two council members gave cell numbers out. So instead of email, cell numbers. And they always just went to different events. Like you have different churches here, you have a lot of groups here. They would just show up and just bring certain issues to them and let them know what was going on and ask for their input. Because to me, like, showing up to the city council meetings, that's like 10% of a city council member's job, in my opinion. What I've seen where a lot of time is researching. So you have to research the issues and you have to go kick rocks and hit people up in the community and ask them what they think about it. Because a lot of times that'll persuade your decision, or at least open up to have more ideas. And one thing I believe in is marketing. And we can talk about the public access, but that's one thing I brought to light in California. There was issues going on with that, but that's an incredible tool that I think is being underused. And so basically marketing, sending flyers out to people. But when you talk about bridging, I think I would just go to all the churches, communities, areas where Hispanic people are at, and start communicating with them. I think it's easy for me to introduce myself to people who speak Spanish only, and tell them what I'm trying to do, what I'm about, and ask them what issues they may have, and then bring that back to you guys. Or whatever you guys might have planning to do, go back and tell them. But basically try to go where there's a group of them at, and that's usually the best way to do it. And in the Hispanic community, the word gets out, like big time. And one thing's unfortunate, Hispanics don't like politicians. They kind of call them like air conditioners, or they compare them to air conditioners. They say they waste a lot of energy, make a lot of noise, and don't really work. So it's kind of, but once you humanize yourself with them, and you show that you do, truly care about them and trying to integrate them, you'll find out that they have the same values as everybody else. They want to work hard, they're loyal. I say work hard, work hard, loyal, and raise their kids. Give their kids an opportunity that they didn't have. So at the end of the day, every generation betters their generation. And everybody has the same ideas. And they feel left out, they feel kind of pushed to the side. So if you reach out to them, you'll see that they bring a lot to the table. I'm sorry, did I answer your question right? Because you said about how would I do it? Yeah, just go out. But I would definitely use CTV5, and I would also make CTV5 have like a Facebook where it's interactive. Like city council meetings should be interactive. Someone could be at home right now tweeting on here, like on that live thing. And maybe, because you guys understand, I work with a lot of elders and kids. There's a lot of elders, they're not mobile, they're homebound. But we're not doing anything to get their voices. And one way of doing that is your CTV5. But just not, there's a lot of ideas that have CTV5 that are just not being used. And also, I don't know why you guys don't have like a bulletin board, like an electronic bulletin board. Now they got cool ones that look like TVs. You can put it somewhere outside where everybody goes by and use it to relay your messages. In both English and Spanish.
I liked a question I heard earlier, and so I wanted to ask you, what have you done in the last 60 days to prepare yourself to become a city councilor?
I kind of, to be honest with you, when I first came here, it's like I thought it was so beautiful here compared to LA. I'm like, man, the last thing I do is get involved in politics because it's so beautiful. But then when that issue came up with first it was CTV5, that kind of just rubbed me wrong, and I started researching about that and how they're not following the franchise requirements. A lot of issues going on with that. So I've been researching that. But then when you guys had the thing with the Confederate flag, I'm like, man, these people really care. They really seem to be concerned about racism and how the city's portrayed, especially kids watching that type of stuff. But I'm like, okay, so this is pretty cool. So I started researching, And then I realized there was I think the lawyer probably knows about it. It's called Montez v. Yakima in 2014. It talked about basically at-large positions. And somehow the court realized that having at-large positions for city council members, it dilutes the minority's vote and the minority's ability to be elected to city council. And it's like a 68-page thing, you can read about it. But the end result was they broke it down, and every position was broke down to a certain area of the city. As soon as they did that, 3 Hispanics were elected to the city council. So not only was the court right, but that they proved that it was right. Because as soon as they changed it, that happened. So I'm like, oh, this is very interesting. So I said, well, let me just do some more research. And the research I did for 60 days had to been looking at the budget, looking at different things, how I can bring a different viewpoint or other issues to light if I was chosen. Because I know a lot of times you have to prioritize. Even in nursing, we do that. But one thing I hate about that, what I don't hate about is that when you prioritize a lot, you have those blinders on, and you forget about the other stuff. But like a dog park, someone brought that up. I had an issue with that too. And that could be someone in the city, that's all they care about is a dog park. But because you guys have such pressing issues over here, you're not even worried about that. I like to worry about those things. Because I think we, as a community, everybody should worry about everybody's issues and try to help out. So I just did a lot of research on what I can bring to the city council in the form of bringing information and research that I've done and new ideas. So I think that's pretty much what I've done in the past 6 days. And there's a lot more I need to do, by the way. The budget alone is scary. Well,
Councilor Parker, anything on this side?
So we're not necessarily going to go through all the questions?
If you'd want to, you're more than welcome to do so.
Oh, I see. Okay. Let's see. I'll ask a different question. So the community, what current community groups are you involved with? I know you're involved with CTV5 as a volunteer. Are you involved with Bridging Cultures?
no, right now, like I said, the past 60 days I've been trying to do research. As being an advocate and being with city council, what I ended up finding out was that a lot of city council members just don't see what's going on. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. It's because they're focused on certain things. So what I like to do, because a lot of people go to city councils and just verbally say things, you know, this is wrong, this is bad. But I want to go there with an answer, and I want to be able to show you, look, here's a franchise agreement. This is what they're not doing. This is what they're supposed to be doing. Can you please, bring this to your city administrator and have them fix it, or whatever the case. So to me, it's been more, it's been more as a priority right now to get stuff that's not being done right and holding franchises or any businesses or nonprofits, hold them kind of accountable and responsible for what they were supposed to do for the city. Because at the end of the day, those are services that are not being provided or being provided subpar. So that's what I've been focusing on. And I just think once those are brought to light, they can easily be fixed and then go back into bridging the community.
Mr. President Dale, did you have something?
Are you done? Oh, okay. Yeah, Mr. Rubio, you mentioned in your application that the Hispanic community is underserved. By that, did you mean the communication issues you were talking about, or did you have some other ideas you wanted to share with us?
I think you guys are definitely doing the best you can by serving the whole community. But I just feel that having that bridge is so important. As hopefully you will see, a lot of the issues that maybe you're trying to get across to the community, they're just not getting across. Or maybe issues that they have are not coming across before you guys. And it could be serious issues. And so when I say serve, I do believe that you guys are not discriminating. I just think that they're lacking that tool to be bicultural and be bilingual. And one more thing, Spanish, when you go to college here, it's called Castania Spanish. The Hispanics don't speak that. That's from Spain, for one. And for two, most elder Hispanics never passed elementary school. So how can you think you can go use a service for translation when they don't understand that? So there's a big misconception about that, and that's one thing I always bring up. As a nurse, we have to show, like I said, say body parts or body systems, and the way I was taught in nursing school, I can't use that. I use pictures and I use different words, because if I use the words they taught me in school, they wouldn't understand anything I'm saying. So that's why I think it's very important to be cognitive of that and figure out how to get around that.
You also mentioned in some of your opening comments some opportunities for the Urban Renewal Agency to improve Canby. We're interested in hearing if you had some more thoughts to share on that.
Oh yeah, I just think that you have to, because cities, I don't know if you guys know, you're allowed to have businesses. You're allowed to partnership. Like here, I mean, if you look at that, I think it's a 10-year plan or the long master plan, they've always talked about bringing Clackamas Community College here, having a satellite school here. I think there was an issue, I think you brought up the other day, that a mom was very excited about the library because now she can go to school. Well, that would have been the perfect opportunity to rent out space here for Clackamas Community College to have a satellite campus here. So it would have brought income in. Not only brought income in, but that mom could have went to school here. So, I mean, that's one thing the ERA could address. Hotels. I mean, you have the riverfront, Willamette River. Why not put a hotel there? There's another thing called, I'm probably not saying it right, but it's called the Immigration 503 program, I think. Basically what it is, if you look at the city of Dallas, they did it the best way. They created a regional center, the city council did. And by doing that, they brought millions of dollars of investments in. And these investments, it's zero, how would you say it? If someone invests $1 million, you don't have to put collateral. You don't have to say, look, you know, it's guaranteed. It's zero guaranteed. They just come and invest it. And by doing a regional center, what it does, you create basically millions of dollars that not only the city council can use for the ERA, but also for businesses can borrow from there to do businesses. So I just think that the ERA should look into doing projects that brings money as well as tourism to the city of Canby. And there's a lot of projects out there, and you can look at all the different cities that are doing exactly that. I think Wilsonville has a beautiful blueprint of what they did with the ERA, involving the school, getting some free land, doing a lot of cool things, holding the contractors accountable, where they said, okay, this is the price, and in the contract they made it where if anything happened, they were responsible. And sure enough, every project something happened, but because putting it in the contract, the contractors are responsible for paying for it. Yes, I think there's a lot of things the ERA can do. They can, like I said, monetize that, where you're bringing money in to the general fund, because that's something that's going to bite everybody in the butt later on.
Good answers. Thank you.
Councilor Coleman, anything?
You've answered a lot of them. Thank you for that. We'll ask you, what do you like best about Canby, and what businesses that are not here would you like to see come to Canby?
This is the small town feeling. I mean, it's so, I think it's the 12th safest city in the nation. Man, it's old town. Like, it's just, I travel a lot throughout South America, Central America, and small communities, this kind of feels like it, where everybody knows everybody, everybody's watching each other's back, the police department. I mean, it's a very safe community, and it's a dying breed, to be honest with you. And to keep it the way it is going to take a lot of effort and a lot of good city council members, I think. I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question?
I was just going to ask you, what businesses that you could see, that you'd like to see in Canby that might bring the community together more? Is there anything that jumps out at you?
Yeah, like in the Hispanic community, they have, like they use the garden. The garden is the main focus point of any city, and everybody usually goes to the garden on Sundays or on the weekends. And so a business it'll be like some type of like entertainment company that will come there and bring concerts or like on a regular basis, because if you bring entertainment activities on a regular basis, not only will you bring the community together, but you'll attract tourism to come in here too. So I think some type of entertainment business, maybe under the SDC. The other one will be a hotel, not a motel, but a hotel. And the hotel also, that in the agreement, like a Class A hotel, like say like Holiday Inn as an example. If Holiday Inn comes in and someone buys it, but say the city were to be in partnership and they put it on an SDC and you guys owned it, they have standards. So if you don't meet those standards, you lose the Holiday Inn part. Well, you have to create that in a franchise, because if you don't, then that Holiday Inn or that multi-million-dollar project can then become like the motel we have now. So you kind of have to kind of put limits, or what do you call it, expectations, and hold them accountable to it, because at the end of the day, if you have, like, say, a Holiday Inn or Best Western, people can build on that. And you have that waterfront property. I mean, to me, that's a perfect place to develop. I think in the UR, you guys can do that cherry picking, where you can change the map. That'd be the perfect place to do that, in my opinion. And if you did something like that, it'll bring in a hotel, maybe some type of community center, I would say, and what else? Oh, there has to be some type of businesses that are helped existing businesses here, like small business development, minority development of businesses, something that ends up, instead of just taking stuff away from the community, but that actually leaves stuff in the community. And that's kind of a slippery slope, but they're definitely out there, you just got to find them.
Thank you very much.
That's it.
Thank you, sir.
so
Thank
much.
you. Mr. Jason Patton.
You know, that clock is screwed up.
It is.
I think it needs a new battery. I've been watching people touch this cord, and it's been bothering me about tripping hazards. So, hello. So my name is Jason Patton, and I have applied for one of this open council position. So a little bit about myself. I have lived in Canby for about 11 years now, and have probably been involved in local organizations and the city through various committees for probably 9 of them. When I first moved to the city, I wanted to get right involved, and so I became a member of the Urban Renewal Board, which was actually ending, so that sort of dissolved. And then I served on the Street Maintenance Task Force, as you all are very aware of. I'm sure to bring that up during every budget committee meeting, to implement a street maintenance fee and the gas tax in the city to help fund our street development, which has been a huge part of that. And actually, some of the other members who served on that committee are behind me here today. And then I was elected to city council. Unfortunately, I had to step down through partway through my term because I took a new job that required quite a bit of travel. But shortly after that, I was appointed to the City Budget Committee and have been serving on that committee ever since. And I'm still a member of the Oregon City Lions Club, but I still do help the Canby Lions Club, so I'm essentially in 2 Lions Clubs, which is fun to see how the different organizations work and how they benefit their communities, because Oregon City and Canby are similar but very different. As far as hobbies, as you probably know, I have a lot of them. I am part of a medieval reenactment group, and with that I do a lot of historical food research. I'm actually doing some research on historical farming practices and gardening practices, because if you've driven by my house, you'll know that another passion of mine is landscaping and gardening. I still don't know why I have not been chosen as the Yard of the Month, but I will be taking that up next year with those folks.
The person to talk to is she's sitting in the back.
I talked to her quite a bit, so we'll have to see what happens next year. I've got some ideas to step my game up, I guess. I do a lot of, like I said, I do a lot of work with the community through, I wished I could do more through my church. I help where help is needed. I enjoy canning. Actually, I've been doing a lot of canning this year, so, you know, we'll see how that works out for Christmas presents this year. But I just like to get up and do things and get involved and make a difference in the community that I'm a part of. I did that when I lived back in my small hometown back in New York, and I've been trying to do that here ever since I've become a resident of this beautiful city. One of the other things that I do is I am a volleyball official, and I've been with the Greater Portland Volleyball Official Association now for 8 or 9 years as well. So I have a lot of different interactions with different groups and different people, and I get a chance to see a lot of different things. So it is a lot of fun. Work, I am a traveling dirt salesman at the moment. My territory is the state of Oregon, and then I do some timber accounts in Washington and Idaho. That is what has been causing a lot of travel, but there is a recently appointed VP of Sales, and we've all been interviewed individually by him, and there is talk of a restructuring of the sales division. So my suspicion is that there will be quite a bit of time on my plate once that all gets sorted out at the end of the year. So that is why I've chosen to become, to put my name in the hat for this position. If this had to come to light before I know one of the questions was, you know, why now, why not, you know, go through the elections process. If corporate had have enlightened us about these changes, I probably would have, but unfortunately that only happened about a month or so ago, and this seemed like an opportune time. This is not the first time I've applied for a city council position. Actually, the first time I did it, none of you were on city council. It was a completely different council. I was not chosen, so that was when I actually ran for city council and was elected by the people, by the citizens of the community to serve in the position. And then a few years ago, when Councilor Rocha and I applied for the vacant seat, and I can't remember what councilor had stepped down. Unfortunately, I had a pre-scheduled work conference in Idaho. And we were unable to reschedule the interview, and so I actually had considered driving the 8.5 hours from right across the Vandal campus to get here for the meeting, but unfortunately the conference took a little longer that day and I was not able to leave in time to get here. So I figured I would give it a shot this time. So if you'd like, I'll just kind of run down through these, and then you can ask questions at your leisure. So what appeals to me, being a member of the city council, I love giving back to the community. And I think it would be poignant, I think I would be a good fit for the council at this point in time, because with this being a short-term position, and yes, I would plan to run when this position comes back up for re-election. I'm familiar with how the council operates as far as what the council's duties are, what that process is. I've continued, like I said, I've continued to stay involved and keep up on city issues. One of the, I think as far as like within the last 60 days, I think I sent you all a very poignant email about not funding the speed tables on Birch Street from the street maintenance fee, which, you know, I do keep on top of what you all do and how the city sort of operates, and I like to pop in every once in a while and let you know that I'm still paying attention. So that's sort of what I think I offer for the city. I also offer not necessarily a light into some of the more like the Hispanic cultures and stuff, but into the younger folks that have moved to Canby recently. The city continues to grow, and the people who are moving here are from elsewhere, as I am one of those people. And more and more that is happening. So the way I see the city is a lot different from the way a lot of the other people in the city see it when they talk about how Canby, we want to keep the small town feel, we want to keep the small town this. I've seen communities adopt that philosophy, and I've seen them get plowed over by what inevitably comes in that growth. And so I think as someone who has come from a small community that was dying to a community that is young and thriving and growing, it provides a very good perspective on things. Yes, I would consider running. I've covered that. What do you think the most pressing problem in the city of Canby is today? Dealing with growth. I think since the housing prices have started to come back, I mean, we've read the articles about the apartment complex there in the industrial park, how it was filled before ground was even broken, and they ended up upping the number of units, and they are still booked solid. It is a big challenge, and it's only going to tax our streets, public transportation, which, let's face it, does as good as it can, but the fact that it would take me 6 hours to go from the city of Canby on public transit to the airport when I could drive it in half an hour is abysmal. And we need to deal with that, because that is going to be one of the big things that is going to hit Canby very soon. So those are sort of the things that I think the city really needs to stay in touch with as we move forward. Tell us a situation. Oh, yeah. So I'm in sales, so I deal with a lot of angry people a lot of times. One of the classic cases that I ran into when I first started with a company, didn't really know what was going on because it was new, and I get a call from a customer, and they say, "Hey, I've got a problem. I have I have dead cauliflower plants, and I don't know why they've died, so you need to come down here and take a look at them." So I do. And I go down there, and there are 4 greenhouses full of dead cauliflower plants. And this is a farmer who is getting ready to plant these out in the field. And this is their primary source of income for their family. And as you can imagine, they were not pleased with the situation. So, started to work with them, started to work with the family, looking at what the problems were, soil samples, tissue samples. Was called, the crowning point of the situation that I was caught in was when they wanted to have a meeting. And so it was myself and my manager sitting across this gentleman's kitchen table from his son, and they essentially saying, "You are causing our family ruin, you will make this right." And so we did. It was about it was over $12,000 in claim that had to be shepherded through the system, which equaled hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost yield on their crop that year. But through hard work and humility, they are a customer to this day. And they purchase their soil every year. Not the soil that they were purchasing before because it was wrong, as I found out, but they purchase from me every year, and they are a loyal customer, and I appreciate that. And I have other stories of that throughout my tenure at the company. As far as specific goals, as you know, through previous conversations and my work on the budget committee, I am sort of like the streets guy. I have worked really hard to make sure that the streets are moving forward and making sure that that street maintenance fee is guarded to do what it's doing. And yes, it is doing a lot, but it needs to do more. And Councilor Coleman, your comment about the county roads, it is ridiculous. The county, the fact that the county will not pay to allow us to take those streets over and bring them up to a city standard is ridiculous. And actually, before this position even came up, I have some friends that live over on Maple Street, and they share with me their frustration. And I tried to explain to them, listen, the council's hands are tied because it's not just a matter of taking that street over. There's certain rules and there's certain things that need to be done. It's like you wouldn't take over a house that's on fire because then you've got to pay to fix it up. And where do you get the money for that? You've just bought a burning house, right? So my thought was, I don't care if I have to go to, with the time that's freed up, I don't care if I have to go to a councilor commission or a Clackamas County Commissioners meeting a month and talk during their open session about the fact that they need to pay attention to Canby's issues and their roads, that, I'll go twice a month if need be, or however. Work with the folks that live on Maple Street and Pine Street and Redwood Street, and start a letter writing campaign and an email blast campaign to the commissioners and to the county to work on getting that fixed, because we have some serious problems, and it's not going to get fixed just by those landowners out there switching their property over to subdivisions and redeveloping them. I mean, that will get us halfway into the road, but what about the other half? And sidewalks and stuff, it's a huge, huge issue. And I have no problem being a part of that. The other thing that's been mentioned a few times is communication. When I first joined the city council, we were embroiled in a huge scandal with the police. And for the 2.5 years that I was on council, I got to help shepherd this organization through that. And while I don't think what's currently going on is quite that bad, I think that, yes, there has been some loss of the public's faith in this group, and I think it's going to take people like myself and maybe some of the folks behind me who are just sort of regular Canby folks getting involved in helping bridge that gap. Yeah, so streets, give an example of how you work as, okay, so how I participate in a team. I am the Christmas tree man for the Canby Lions Club. When the Canby Lions, one of the biggest fundraisers the Canby Lions Club does is their Christmas tree lot. And when I first took it over, it was bad. We actually had to rent a dumpster to throw out trees, and I think that year the club lost money. And so they said, hey, Jason, you're a go-getter, you're a great guy, we're going to give this to you. And so for the last 5 or 6 years, I've been managing that project. I've been working with individuals within the club. We partnership with the Oliver Foundation and the Boy Scouts. And last year, we had normally in the past, we had sold about 250 or so Christmas trees. Last year was our biggest year ever. We ended up selling just over 400 Christmas trees. The profit to the club was over $7,000, which goes completely into the community. And so, needless to say, working with all those groups and working with the club itself, because like any great organization, there are certain folks that want to do things a certain way and others that don't. And it's very important to work and cross those bridges and give a little here to get some there. And, you know, I think I can take that philosophy and bring it to the council, but just on a larger level. Tell us a time where you were forced to make an unpopular decision. Well, I am a volleyball official, and I don't know if you're familiar with the game of volleyball, but every time the ball is touched, there is a possible infraction. And so, as you can imagine, it's all about judgment calls. And sometimes, maybe I don't get it right. And sometimes I see things from a different angle as the coach or the players or the folks in the stands. And so during the volleyball season, which is wrapping itself up, every night I work a volleyball game, I am making decisions that many people just don't like. But one of the things that I have to do is say, okay, maybe I just sucked that game up and it was horrible, but the next time I do this, I'm going to do it better. And I'm going to get those calls right. And I'm going to make the next game my best game ever. And, you know, a lot of that can be said for this group. You know, there are a lot of people out there in the city that we do or do not come in contact with. It's important to take the fact that these 2 or 3 people that you are talking to have this one opinion, but there are many, many other people out there that have some opinion that's completely different. And understanding that opinion and respecting it and maybe absorbing a little of it to make a decision that maybe you personally wouldn't like to make or that your constituents wouldn't necessarily like you to make is important. And, I mean, I look back on it. I was on the council that decided to put urban renewal funding towards this building. It isn't where I originally expected it to be, and the process of building it was very different. But, you know, at the time, there were some people who didn't think it was a great idea, but at the time I did. I thought it was time for the citizens of this community to reap the benefit of what, you know, some landowners had received out there in the urban renewal district or out in the, you know, in the industrial park. And so, you know, it was a decision that I stand by today, and I have no problem with people disagreeing with me. So, as far as time commitment, as you know, the fact of the matter is, can I sit here and guarantee to you that I will make every single committee meeting and every single city council meeting and every single special meeting? I cannot make that guarantee because, let's face it, life happens. I have aging parents. Let's say someone calls me up and say, Jason, we're going to Hawaii, and it's on a Wednesday city council night, but you're going next week. Guess what? I'm sorry, I'm going to Hawaii. We're just going to have to do the meeting from abroad or whatever. But, you know, I dare say that if anybody was to stand up here and tell you that they can guarantee that they will be at every single meeting, they would be setting themselves up for failure. So, will I do my best to be the best city councilor that I can be? Yes. Will I put in the time to make sure that the citizens behind me and the people who are watching at home or don't really care at least have a voice? You better believe it. I did it before, and I'm willing to do it again. So with that, I'll take your questions.
Well, thank you, Jason. Appreciate that. What did you, last time you were in the role, what did you like best about the role and what did you like least?
I liked the collaboration that we had. I liked the fact that we didn't all necessarily agree, but in the end, we came to a consensus. And when it was time to step forward and talk to the community, we looked like a cohesive group. Yes, we may have talked about how the fact that we didn't agree with this opinion or that opinion, but in the end, when someone said, "Why'd you do that?" you defended the decision. And you said, "This is why it was done." And maybe I didn't agree with it, but as a group, this was the decision that we came to, and we sort of upheld it. And towards the end of that, that all started to, there were some changes and some people stepping down and new people coming on and stuff. But that was one of the things that I really liked. One of the things that I disliked was the fact that I was coming in on the heels of a pretty nasty situation as far as what was going on with the police and what was going on with the city administrator at the time. But, it was tough, but we made it work. And we got stuff done, and I, to this day, stand with the counselors that were on the council at that time and agree that it was the best decision for the city. And agree and feel that, those decisions that we made had an impact on where we are today, and that it was a positive one. I also like the fact that we looked at the councils before us. One of the things with city council is that, yes, you are sitting up there today, but there were people who put in a lot of work before you. And really paying attention to what those folks did, what impact their decisions made, and how, even though you might not agree with them all, how you were going to move that process forward. Because it doesn't look good to stop, back, or sidestep, and then try and pick up again. So that was the other thing that I liked, was the fact that we had some folks on the council that had quite a bit of longevity, and we really looked back to see what was done in the past to move it forward to the future. Is your microphone on?
It's not. If you were to paint your front door any color you choose, which one would you choose?
Oh, a question that speaks to my heart. This is my question, actually. I enjoy this one. So, in this current situation, I would paint. It wouldn't be a solid door. It would have a wood frame, and that wood frame would probably be blue because, let's face it, blue is my favorite color. But the paint in the inside would be clear glass, because I think it is important for us, as you, as a city council, or as a city councilor, to be able to look outside and see what's going on outside of your community. And not look through a little hole, but look through a big one, the size of a door, maybe even a double door. But then also allow people to be able to look in at you, to see how you operate, to see what your thoughts and philosophies are, and make sure that they are impacting your decisions in a positive way. So that is the answer. I would have blue casing, clear paint in the middle.
Thank you, Jason.
If you were to ask that
Of course I will.
question.
Got it. I don't have anything
I have a question. So you talked about your ability to reach out to younger citizens, millennials, or folks that are moving in. What about the reaching out to the Hispanic community, which is about 21%? We're trying to do that as a council, and that's kind of a topic that's coming up with the candidates. What do you think we could do, or what could you add to that?
That would be a tough one for me. It would be one of those situations where I would have to push myself outside of my comfort zone and really take on a task that I'm not necessarily used to. I mean, obviously I interact with Hispanic people in my line of work because I work in agriculture. But as far as being able to communicate with them, I really don't know how to speak much Spanish. And half the time when I do speak it, it's more for a joke and they laugh at me rather than actually understanding what I'm saying. But I think there are ways, and I think it's not necessary. I'm not sure if it would be necessary. There are people in the community who want to make that happen. It's a matter of going out and finding those people and then using them as the conduit to bring those people into the city. How I would do that, I have not put a whole lot of thought into that. Obviously, unfortunately, The gentleman before me was able to give me a few ideas if I am chosen. But you know, I think it is lacking in this community. And how I would approach that, I'm not sure. But I would be willing to sort of listen to what people in the community have to say and sort that out.
Councilor Coleman.
Mayor, Mr. Padden, I was going to ask you kind of a three-part question. What do you like best about Canby? How do you feel about tourism? And I know there's a lot of people in the community that have dogs, and do you have any ideas on how you might maintain a dog park?
So what do I love about Canby? I like the fact that it is close to everything but far enough away to not be a part of it all. I like where the area that I grew up in. I say, you know, I grew up in New York, and people are like, oh, New York City, and it's like, no. If I wanted to go through New York to New York City, it would take 6 hours, and I'd have to cut through Pennsylvania. I grew up in an extremely rural area, and so there wasn't a whole lot available to me. So when I moved to Canby, it was amazing to see the diversity, not only within the city, but, you know, 30 minutes away from Portland, 45 minutes from skiing, an hour or so from the coast. The diversity in the state and around this area is a lot of fun, and I really enjoy that. People ask, would I ever move back to New York? And I tell them, maybe if the whole Cascadia subduction zone thing happens and I'm still alive after it, maybe, but it would take some sort of event like that to do it. So that's really what I love about Canby, is it's a fairly progressive community when it could get stuck in a rut, and it's very, very close to a lot of really fun things. And I think the boom in our population and the people moving into the community are a testament to that. People don't move into an area that isn't fun to live in, and I think that speaks volumes for what Canby is doing here. Is there more work that needs to be done? Yes, and I think it needs to be. I think it needs, that effort needs to speed up. Otherwise, the city could fall behind in keeping up with that pace. As far as a dog park, I know that's been talked about a lot. So I live over on North Birch Street, and I overlook the new development that's been going in back there, and I cannot remember the name of it for the life of me at the moment. But there is this large strip that goes in between the street. And I'm amazed when I look out my window and look across the field over to that strip, how many people are walking their dogs over there and running their dogs, which is really actually illegal because, you know, there's a leash law in Canby, and they're running their dogs off their leash because they don't have a place to do this. And I think, you know, I know it's been talked about. There's been talk of building one. There's been a location recommended and such. The funding is a problem. But I think in a lot of cases, if you're a responsible dog owner, which I don't actually have a dog, so I'm speaking through a conduit through friends of mine who are dog owners, responsible dog owners will make an effort to police that stuff. The last thing you want is to be a rude dog owner at a dog park, because oftentimes you get put in your place, from what I understand. So I don't know what the financial impact long-term would be. I know there'd be a financial impact of building it, but I think it could actually fall on the community to help with the maintenance of it and the policing of it. But, you know, I'm sure there's a million opinions as to why that wouldn't work. It would just be a matter of vetting those and seeing what would happen. And I'm sorry, what was the third?
Oh, your thoughts on tourism.
Tourism, yes. You know, I think tourism is very important to Canby. I think it does a lot to foster it, but I think there could be more done. I can't remember when it was, but you actually had mentioned we have you know, there's talk about all this parkland that we have, and we really don't have the money to develop it as parks and maintain it. But you, Councilor Coleman, you actually had mentioned about creating like a camping area, place for RVs and tents and stuff, and it would be city property that was owned by the city, and the city would run it and reap the benefit of what was made from it. And I really like that idea. I think that is a great idea, and I think that there is funds that could be put towards creating something like that, and really in a very short period of time pay that off. Because if there are, you look at the events that they have at the Clackamas Community, or the Clackamas Convention Center over here, and there's RVs, there's campers, there's people there's actually a campground in the back where people will put up tents and stuff. I think they get taxed at times of how much space they can allocate to that, and I think that would be a really great use of the city land to build something like that. I think it was you, actually, Mayor, that had mentioned something about taking one of the buildings that is going to be vacated from this expansion and creating an incubator for new businesses, whether it be like a flex space office space and maybe like a flex space kitchen, and have the city invest in some tools and equipment for young business owners or folks that are first starting their business that maybe have grown to the point where they can't do it in their home, but they can't afford a physical space. And for a fee, they could rent the space from the city, and if it's got like a industrial kitchen, the city maintains the kitchen part, and they know that it's up to code, and they can go in and use the facilities as they need for what they're doing. Or if it's office space, you know, if it's someone who just needs a physical address, they could rent it for a period of time and come in and set up their computer and stuff, and it can be flexed in and out. I think that's a great idea. And I think there's other things that the city could be doing to sort of capitalize on the folks coming in and sort of keep some of that money in the community.
Thank you very much.
Other questions? Mr. Patton? Thank you, sir.
Not a problem. My pleasure.
Mr. Varwig. Hello, sir. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. The floor is yours.
All right. Good evening, Mayor Hodson, councilors, and fellow Canby residents. I want to thank you for the opportunity to interview for this appointment to our city council. I know it hasn't come without scrutiny. And so I just want to make it clear that I'm here tonight not because of any hidden agenda or as a backdoor onto the city council. I want to make sure that it's clear that I'm here because of my deep love for Canby and because of my desire to serve. My name is Sean Varwig, and I have been a resident of Canby since October of 2012. I've been married to my wife Jessica since April of 2008, and we have two beautiful daughters. Lily is 6 years old, and she's a kindergartner at Lee Elementary. Chloe is 3, and she attends a private preschool on the campus of my wife's company in Wilsonville. We moved here with a desire to find a safe and vibrant community where we could raise our children. And after renting a home for 1 year, we knew that Canby was that place. And so we purchased our very first home here together. And Lord willing, we plan to stay here as long as life allows. This year, after having fallen head over heels for this community, I left a very comfortable job in order to open my company here, Judson Roy Home Furnishings. For the 5 years prior to the opening of my company, I was a chief operations officer for a company in Wilsonville. It was through that position that I was able to hold positions such as the chairman of the ambassador team for the Wilsonville Chamber of Commerce, as well as positions on their public policy committee and their board of directors. I've also served on various boards and committees through churches that I've attended and nonprofit organizations in which I have volunteered with. When time does allow for hobbies, I enjoy spending time working in my yard. I know why I'm not the garden of the month. I'm a passionate Seahawks fan and have recently taken up golfing, which I am terrible at. I'll just go through as well. Question number 2, what appeals to me about serving as a Canby City Councilor? I grew up in a town that once upon a time was very similar to Canby, and I have great memories of my childhood. In the last 30-plus years, that town has grown to become the 9th largest city in the state of Washington. And my family still lives there, and so I visit often. The town is no longer recognizable. They have a mass transit station and a parking garage, a large shopping mall, and 13 Starbucks. Their crime rate is through the roof, and I worry daily about my parents and my siblings and my extended family who still live there. The other day I read a post on Facebook where someone stated their life story as a common Canby story, and that's what I want for my children. I want them to forever be able to recognize Canby as their home, and if they should so desire, to be able to return here to raise their children. I believe that growth is necessary, and I support it, but I don't want my children to look back 30 years from now and remember how Canby used to be, the way that I do about the city where I grew up. So the appeal to me is having even but a small part in helping to guide and shape the future of this city into a place that is and will continue to be a conduit for a common Canby story. Question number 3, if I'm appointed to the council, will I consider running? Absolutely. I spent a considerable amount of time actually considering running this year. But obviously there are 3 fantastic incumbents and 2 very, very capable and qualified challengers, and so I felt that this year wasn't the time for me to run. And so whether I'm appointed to the seat or not, I already plan on running in 2018. The most pressing problem as I see it, as a business owner in the downtown area, I'm sure the opinion is biased, but the opinion is that growth and marketing of our downtown business is most pressing. We don't have the same visibility as businesses along 99. And so the issue becomes, how do we attract folks to our downtown? And moreover, how do we keep them there spending money? We have a lot of service-related business, which is fantastic, but how do we increase the retail and give shoppers enough variety to make them want to shop in our downtown and in our city? A situation which I may have had to deal with a very upset customer. Years ago, I worked on an escalation team in a call center for a cell phone company during a merger. You can imagine people who are upset, and most of the time rightly so, get on one end of the phone and they don't know the person they're talking to, and they say what's on their mind. I've been called some of the dirtiest, raunchiest names, but what I learned through that job is that while we may never agree on something, talking through it in a friendly and respectful manner will most often lead to a result that is mutually beneficial for all. Question number 6, my specific goals or improvements, again, obviously as a business owner in downtown, it would be to increase the visibility to businesses downtown. We have a lot of great events that happen, but I want to see businesses thriving even when events aren't taking place. I'd love to help implement a downtown merchants association, which I will plan on being a part of whether appointed to the seat or not. And I'd love to see a focus on improving. We're the garden spot. I would love to see our landscape improved around the city and along 99. The town is already beautiful, and I'd just love to see how we could improve upon it. Question number 7, part of a team. My most recent example is that I had the honor of serving on the Canby Independence Day Celebration Committee, and more specifically on the kids' activities. Councillor Haidt was on that team, as well as Greg Perez, Bryn Carter, and Jamie Stickle. And I really enjoyed meeting with those folks and sitting around the table and just talking through ideas and brainstorming. I think that was fantastic. What I learned from that is that while people may have different backgrounds and experiences, if you get together and share those, you can come up with some great resolutions for an event. Number 8, forced to make an unpopular decision. Obviously, as a business owner and chief operations officer previously, there's been a lot of those, but the one that comes to mind is I once had to terminate an employee based on antics that were happening behind the scenes. This employee was very popular among the staff and with the clients. On the surface, everything looked great, but behind the scenes and behind closed doors, things were a mess. We had to choose to terminate the employee, and it created some chaos, but it was the best decision for the company, for their future, and for the health of the company. And then the last question, yes, with the blessing of my wife and family, if selected to this position, I definitely can make the time commitment to be active and engaged member of the City Council.
Great. Thanks, Sean. One of my questions for you is, so can you tell us more about your involvement in the Public Policy Council there in Wilsonville that you were part of, and like what policy aspects did you guys review, discuss, weigh in on, et cetera?
Yeah, the biggest one that took place while I was on it's been about the last year that I've been on that policy council, and obviously with the elections this year, there was a lot of discussions over that, but Measure 97 was a big concern. Prior to that, it was IP 28, and what position does the chamber take on that, and educating ourselves about about that. So that was a lot of what the discussion was about, and then just candidate forums and that type of stuff.
So, thanks. Within that, was there a time where you went contrary to maybe the recommendation of the policy board?
I can't remember a specific instance where I was contrary to it, but one thing that I value about myself is that I consider myself to be very open about issues. I don't take any sort of political affiliation, I guess would be the best way to say it. If you look at my ballot, there's people from across all sort of different affiliations. That's one of the things that I love about a nonpartisan position such as this, is that it's based on how I truly believe about each situation. So no, I don't know of any specific instance. I agreed with the majority of people most of the time. Obviously on that situation, that measure is not good for business in my opinion, and we all agreed on that.
So for the last 60 days, what have you done over the last 60 days to prepare to maybe step into this role?
I would say that what I've been doing most of the time is I've spent time learning about all of you, but mostly reviewing previous city council meetings, understanding the process, how they work, and that kind of stuff. I don't know that it would be 60 days. It was October 5th when I submitted my application, so it hasn't been quite 60 days that I've even known that I was going to be here in this seat. So prior to October 5th, I wouldn't have done anything to prepare myself for this spot.
There's been lots of conversations about urban renewal and candidate forum. There was questions about it. We've heard it this evening. Very hot topic, you know, having been involved in the business community in Wilsonville. I'm sure you've heard that as a heavy topic of conversation. So what are your thoughts as urban renewal as a tool, and how do you see Canby using that going forward?
I have a lot of education that I need to learn on urban renewal. I don't know a ton about it, but what I do know is that growth is it's inevitable. It's going to happen. How are we responsible about that, and how do we use the urban growth boundary, the urban renewal information to make qualified, responsible decisions?
I'll start over here. Councilor Coleman, anything?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Varwick, I have two questions for you. First one is, what do you think the city should do to better help the business community? That's the first one. And then second one is, what are some of the steps you would recommend to take to help the health of the downtown business district?
Yeah, I think that making sure that we are in sync with the Chamber of Commerce would be a great way to make sure that we're talking through issues that affect business, not just in downtown, but across the entire city.
The area of most interest, or which are you most passionate about? I'll just rattle off a few to kind of jog your memory. But there's Parks and Rec, Library, Planning Commission, Bike and Ped, CAT, Canby Adult Center, Canby Utility Board, Liaison, yeah.
I think the most, what was your word, passionate about, would probably be the plan.
On the other end that we're looking, what are some suggestions you have for us?
I think that one of the things that happened there is
It's a very growth, but like we just use the examples of the amount of apartments that we have 170 unit apartment complex that's got a waiting list already, and you know, we've got plans for, you know, we've had three or four property annexations since, you know, here recently, and so it is a fine line of how do we manage the growth and still keep some of that essence of Canby and what that looks like. And so that is a big piece, I think, coming up for our community. And how do you grow? How do we do things, you know, projects like this and still keep that small town? And I don't know, maybe we can't. What are your thoughts?
Well, obviously growth is good for my business. I sell furniture, and so I want.
All right. Mr. Farwick, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. not least, Irene Konev. Hello, how are you?
Good evening. I hope everyone's still awake.
Everyone's riveted right now.
Great. It's great to be here. Thank you, Mr. Mayor Hudson and councilors. My name is Irene Konev, and I'm a candidate for Cambie City Council. I'm currently running, and I'm also an applicant for this council vacancy. I want to thank the staff of the city of Cambie because there's a lot of work that happened to make this evening all come together today. As someone who regularly brings forward volunteers for city council appointments, I know how much work this is, so thank you.